In the heart of Dehradun, shrouded in the dense embrace of ancient forests, stood the Dev Bhumi Institute of Technology, a prestigious institution of learning known for its academic excellence. Yet, despite its reputation, the college was enveloped in an air of mystery and foreboding. In the remote wilderness of Dehradun, surrounded by thick, ancient forests, stood the Dev Bhumi Institute of Technology. Despite being a beacon of education and modernity, the college was enveloped in an aura of mystery and unease. Far removed from the vibrant energy of city life, the campus seemed isolated, almost forgotten by the outside world. The dense woods surrounding the institution were home not just to wild animals but also to whispered legends of the supernatural. Tales of strange sightings and eerie occurrences had long been part of the college's lore, passed down from one generation of students to the next, each adding their own embellishments. It was in this unsettling environment that a group of 7 students would find themselves embroiled in a nightmarish encounter, one that would forever change their lives. The evening began like many others, with a group of friends, Jiwan, Anuj, Priya, Vikram, Rohan, Rahul, and Kartik, gathered in their dorm room, eager to unwind after a day filled with classes and assignments. They had managed to procure some potent weed, a rare treat in their secluded setting, and after sharing a few joints, they decided to embark on one of their favorite nocturnal escapades, a trip to the Sudhawala Dhaba. This local eatery, known for its mouth-watering dishes and late-night service, was a popular spot for students looking to escape the confines of campus life. The journey to the dhaba was a 7-kilometer trek through the dark, forested roads, a path both thrilling and terrifying in equal measure. Laughing and joking, the group set off, blissfully unaware of the terror that awaited them on their return. The walk to the dhaba was surreal, as if they were moving through a dream. The intoxicating effects of the weed dulled their senses, turning the usually ominous forest into a place of wonder. The moonlight filtered through the dense canopy of trees, casting silver beams that danced on the forest floor. The group, emboldened by their high spirits and the safety of numbers, felt invincible as they strolled along the narrow, winding road. When they finally arrived at the dhaba, they wasted no time in indulging their ravenous appetites, ordering plate after plate of the establishment's finest dishes. The small, bustling eatery was filled with their laughter and banter, the air thick with the aroma of spices and sizzling meat. Anuj, always the jokester, even suggested ordering chicken tikka for dessert, eliciting a chorus of amused groans from his friends. With their hunger sated and spirits lifted, they began the journey back to their college, unaware that their light-hearted adventure was about to take a dark and sinister turn. As they retraced their steps through the forest, the atmosphere around them began to shift. The jovial mood that had accompanied them earlier faded, replaced by a growing sense of unease. The full moon, which had previously bathed the road in gentle light, now cast long, ominous shadows that seemed to reach out towards them. The trees on either side of the road appeared to close in, their gnarled branches twisting into unnatural shapes that clawed at the night sky. Priya, sensitive to the changing energy, shivered and commented on how the darkness seemed to have deepened, as though the night itself was closing in around them. Vikram, ever the skeptic, tried to reassure her, pointing out that there were 7 of them and nothing could happen to such a large group. But his words did little to quell the rising tension, and soon the group found themselves sharing ghost stories, each tale adding to the creeping dread that hung in the air. It was then that they noticed something strange ahead on the road, a thick, white fog that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. The fog was dense, almost impenetrable, and completely out of place on what had been a clear night. The group hesitated, unsure of whether to continue, but curiosity and the desire to get back to the safety of their dorms drove them forward. As they approached the fog, something even stranger occurred. A tiny flame flickered to life in the middle of the mist. A matchstick had been struck, but there was no one to be seen. The flame hovered in the air, casting an eerie glow, and then, as if by some dark magic, 2 cigarettes appeared, their tips glowing red as if held by invisible hands. The cigarettes puffed in unison, their embers bright against the ghostly white fog, creating a scene that was both surreal and terrifying. Jiwan, his voice trembling with fear, asked the others if they could see what he was seeing. They all nodded, their faces pale, but none of them could look away from the bizarre sight before them. The fog thickened around them, the air heavy with the acrid scent of cigarette smoke, a smell that now felt menacing and out of place. Despite their fear, they continued to walk, their steps slow and tentative, as they approached the floating cigarettes. Just as they were within a few meters of the apparition, one of the cigarettes suddenly dropped to the ground, scattering sparks across the road. The sudden movement startled them, but they pressed on, their hearts pounding in their chests as they tried to get past whatever it was that lurked in the mist. As they reached the spot where the cigarette had fallen, the fog began to dissipate, revealing a sight that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. There, sitting by the side of the road, was a man, but not an ordinary man. His body was slumped over, still as a corpse, but where his head should have been, there was nothing but a cloud of smoke. Thick, black smoke billowed from his neck, as if his head had been replaced by the smoldering remnants of a fire. Vikram, his voice barely above a whisper, urged the others to keep walking, to ignore the figure, and not to look back. But Rohan, who hadn't seen the man, turned around in confusion, his voice breaking the tense silence as he asked where the figure was. His loud question shattered the fragile calm, and in a blind panic, the group broke into a run, their feet pounding the pavement as they sprinted down the road, desperate to escape the horror that lay behind them. They didn't stop running until they reached the safety of the college gates, their breaths coming in ragged gasps, their faces ashen with fear. Only then did they dare to look back, relieved to find that no one had been left behind. Without saying a word, they hurried back to their dorm room, their bodies still shaking from the terrifying encounter. As they gathered in a room, they recounted what they had seen, each of them describing the same horrifying figure, a headless man with smoke rising from his neck. The reality of what they had witnessed began to sink in, and the group found themselves unable to sleep, their minds replaying the nightmarish vision over and over again. The dawn eventually broke over the campus, but the light of day did little to dispel the terror that gripped the hearts of the 7 students. They had set out that night in search of fun and adventure, but instead, they had encountered something far beyond their understanding, something that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The man on the road was no mere ghost story. It was a terrifying reality that they could never forget, a chilling reminder that some things are better left undisturbed in the dark corners of the world. Years later, as they looked back on their university days, the memory of the headless man remained a haunting reminder of the supernatural forces that exist just beyond the realm of human comprehension. It was a story they would never forget, a chilling chapter in their lives that served as both a terrifying experience and a profound lesson in humility before the unknown. In the end, the tale of the man on the road became more than just a story. It was a testament to the enduring power of fear and the uncharted mysteries that lie hidden in the shadows. For the 7 students of Dev Bhumi Institute of Technology, it was a night they would carry with them forever, a reminder of the eerie and inexplicable forces that sometimes cross into the realm of the real, leaving behind a legacy of dread that lingers long after the darkness has receded. And that concludes today's eerie tale on Horror Echo. I hope you found this story as spine-chilling and captivating as I did. If you enjoyed the journey into the unknown, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more thrilling horror stories and unsettling encounters. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. Today, we have something a little different, a chilling tale that might just make you think twice about the ordinary things around you. Imagine a quiet village, a night unlike any other, and a well that holds ancient secrets. This is the story of The Magic Well, where curiosity leads to a dark discovery. So, sit back, turn down the lights, and get ready for a horror tale that will stay with you long after the screen goes dark. Let's begin. In our quiet village, the nights are usually serene, filled with the comforting sounds of rustling leaves and distant animal calls. But tonight, something is different. It's as if the night itself is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I lie in bed, my eyes wide open, staring into the darkness. Sleep evades me, and an inexplicable unease grips my heart. The creak of my old jute bed is the only sound in the room, a reminder that I'm still awake. I can feel it in my bones. Something is wrong. Unable to shake the feeling, I get up, my feet touching the cold, hard floor. The air is heavy, almost suffocating, and the silence is unsettling. I step outside, drawn by an invisible force, as if something beyond my understanding is calling out to me. The village, usually cloaked in a comforting darkness, is bathed in an eerie, otherworldly light. The stars, normally twinkling above, seem to be frozen in place, and the moon looms unnaturally large in the sky, casting a pale, ghostly glow over everything. As I take in the scene before me, my eyes are drawn to the old well at the center of the village. It has always been there, a constant presence in our lives, providing water for generations. But tonight, under the strange light of the moon, it feels different, alive, almost. A shiver runs down my spine as I realize that the source of my unease is the well itself. The well, once a symbol of life and sustenance, now seems ominous and foreboding. I approach it cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest. The closer I get, the more I can feel the air around it growing colder, as if the well is drawing the warmth out of the night. The stone walls of the well are slick with moisture, and the water inside reflects the moon's light in a way that seems unnatural. Peering into the well, I notice something that makes my blood run cold. The water level has dropped significantly, revealing a set of ancient stone stairs spiraling down into the darkness below. I've lived in this village all my life, but I've never seen these stairs before. They seem to beckon me, promising answers to questions I didn't even know I had. Without fully understanding why, I place my foot on the first step. The stone is cool and solid beneath me, and as I descend, the water covers my feet, warm and unsettling. My mind screams at me to turn back, to flee from whatever lies below, but my body continues to move forward, driven by a force beyond my control. With each step, the light above grows dimmer, and the darkness below becomes all-encompassing. The descent is slow, almost agonizing. The further I go, the more the well seems to close in around me, the stone walls pressing in on all sides. The air is thick with humidity, making it difficult to breathe, and the faint light from above is now just a distant memory. My heart races as I realize that I've gone too far to turn back, yet the bottom is nowhere in sight. And then, it happens. My foot slips on a slick patch of stone, and I lose my balance. I tumble down the stairs, my hands scraping against the rough stone walls as I fall. I brace myself for the impact of cold water, but instead, I land on solid ground. The shock of the landing knocks the wind out of me, and I lie there for a moment, trying to catch my breath. When I finally open my eyes, I'm met with a sight that defies logic. Above me, the water from the well is suspended in midair, as if frozen in time. The moon's reflection shimmers on the surface, casting an eerie light over the cavern I've found myself in. The air is cool and damp, and the only sound is the faint dripping of water from the ceiling. I slowly rise to my feet, my mind struggling to comprehend what I'm seeing. As I take in my surroundings, I notice a tunnel leading away from the cavern. Its entrance is framed by flickering torches, their flames casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. The tunnel seems to stretch on forever, disappearing into the darkness. I hesitate, knowing that whatever lies ahead could be even more dangerous than what I've already encountered. But I have no other choice. I take a deep breath and step into the tunnel, the sound of my footsteps echoing off the stone walls. The further I go, the more the tunnel widens, and the torches become more frequent. The air is thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, something metallic and sharp, like the scent of blood. The tunnel eventually opens up into a vast underground chamber. The space is enormous, with a high, vaulted ceiling that disappears into the shadows. In the center of the chamber, a circle of torches illuminates a figure standing with his back to me. My breath catches in my throat as I realize that I'm not alone. The figure in the center of the chamber is an old man, his back hunched under the weight of a dark, tattered cloak. He stands perfectly still, as if he has been waiting for me. But it's not the man that captures my attention. It's the two massive lions sitting on either side of him. Their eyes gleam with a strange intelligence, and their muscles ripple beneath their fur as they watch me with an intensity that sends a chill down my spine. For a moment, I convince myself that the lions are mere statues, placed here as a warning to those who dare to venture into this place. But then, one of them moves. Its growl is low and menacing, a sound that vibrates through the chamber and rattles my bones. The old man still hasn't turned to face me, but I can feel his presence as if he's observing me from the shadows. My heart races as I realize that I've crossed some kind of threshold. The lions are not here by accident, they are guardians, and I've intruded on their domain. The air is thick with tension, and I know that one wrong move could seal my fate. The lion's growl grows louder, filling the chamber with a sense of impending doom. I take a step back, my instincts screaming at me to flee, but my feet are rooted to the ground. The old man remains still, his silence adding to the terror of the situation. The second lion rises, its eyes locked on mine, and I know that I am about to face something far beyond my understanding. Without warning, the lion lunges at me, its powerful body hurtling through the air with a speed that takes my breath away. There's nowhere to run, no escape from the nightmare that has become my reality. Just as the lion's massive paws are about to strike, everything around me goes black. I wake with a start, my heart pounding in my chest, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The first light of dawn is seeping through the cracks in the walls, and the familiar sounds of the village waking up fill the air. I'm back in my room, lying on my jute bed, but the memory of the underground chamber, the old man, and the lions is still fresh in my mind. Was it all just a dream? The fear I felt was so real, so vivid, that it seems impossible to dismiss it as a mere figment of my imagination. I sit up, my body trembling with the aftershocks of terror. Outside, the village is coming to life, the sounds of daily routines beginning to break the silence of the night. But I know that something has changed. The well, once a source of life, has become something else, something dark and dangerous. I can feel it in my bones that whatever lies beneath the well is not finished with me yet. The memory of the lion's eyes haunts me, their gaze burning into my soul. I know that I have ventured into a place where I do not belong, and the consequences of that journey are far from over. Thanks for tuning in to Horror Echo, where we keep you ahead of the curve with the latest tech insights and updates. If you enjoyed this horror tale and want more thrilling stories or cutting-edge tech news, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. In the quiet, unassuming town of Chennai, Shanti lived a life that appeared to be as ordinary as any other. Her days were spent in the company of college students, her evenings punctuated by the warm glow of her modest apartment. Shanti sat back in her old armchair, its fabric worn and frayed from years of use. The warm glow of the sunset filtered through the windows, casting long shadows across the room. The girls gathered around her, their eyes wide with curiosity, waiting for the next chapter of her life to unfold. She took a slow drag from her cigarette, letting the smoke curl up towards the ceiling, a habit she'd never managed to shake off. "You're probably wondering about that night," she began, her voice tinged with a distant sadness. "The night that changed everything." The girls exchanged glances, sensing that what was coming next was no ordinary story. Shanti's life was filled with tales of struggle and survival, but this one was different. It was darker. Shanti's thoughts drifted back to when she was just a child, no more than 9 years old. The lush hills of Munnar were her world, a place of serene beauty, where tea plantations stretched as far as the eye could see. Her father worked as a driver for a wealthy plantation owner, and they lived in a modest shack that clung to the side of a hill. Despite their humble circumstances, they were content. Her father spent most days driving the plantation owner around, while her mother tended to the household and worked in the owner's bungalow. Shanti and her sister attended a small school in the nearby village, their days filled with laughter and learning. But their peaceful life was shattered one morning when her mother discovered that her precious golden bangles were missing. They had been a symbol of her parents' hard work and sacrifice, and their loss devastated her mother. As her mother wept inconsolably, the family's neighbor, Kamachi Pati, stepped in. The old widow was a fixture in their lives, a source of comfort and wisdom. She had moved to Munnar as a young bride and had seen much in her time. Kamachi Pati took Shanti's father aside, her voice low and serious. "There is a temple in my village," she said. "A place where justice is done. If someone in your family stays there, the thief will suffer and eventually confess." With no other options, Shanti's father decided to take Kamachi Pati's advice. They made the long journey to the temple, nestled deep in the heart of a small village. It was a place where people didn't just come to pray. They came to exorcise demons, to rid themselves of dark curses. Shanti was left at the temple for 2 weeks. The temple was ancient, its walls covered in strange symbols and the scent of incense thick in the air. During her stay, she encountered a young girl, no older than 15, who had been brought there by her parents. The girl was beautiful but troubled. Her eyes were wild, and she moved with a frenetic energy that disturbed Shanti deeply. The priests chanted incessantly, performing rituals to cleanse the girl of whatever dark force had taken hold of her. Shanti watched from a distance, her young mind unable to fully comprehend the horrors she was witnessing. Each day, the girl's parents would bring her to the temple courtyard, where she would perform a terrifying dance, her long hair whipping around her like a storm. Her eyes, once vibrant, were now dull and lifeless, consumed by whatever malevolent spirit had taken control. Shanti couldn't tear her eyes away from the spectacle, even as fear rooted her to the spot. The girl's movements were erratic, as if she were being controlled by invisible strings. She twirled and spun, her body contorting in unnatural ways. Her mouth foamed, and her voice was nothing more than guttural growls. The priests chanted louder, trying to overpower the darkness that clung to her. Shanti didn't know what became of the girl. After 2 weeks, her father returned to take her home, and the memories of that time were buried deep within her mind, forgotten, or so she thought. Years passed, and Shanti left Munnar behind, moving to the bustling city of Chennai. She found work, made friends, and eventually met a man named Amal. They shared a small apartment, a cozy one-bedroom flat where they would spend hours watching movies and enjoying each other's company. Amal was a kind soul, though his eyesight was terrible. His thick glasses gave him a bookish appearance, and he had a habit of squinting at people who passed by, unable to recognize them from even a short distance. Shanti loved her life in Chennai. It was a far cry from the simplicity of her childhood, but it was hers, and she cherished it. Her apartment was filled with mementos from her travels, and the neighborhood kids often visited, treating her like the older sister they never had. But as the years went by, the memory of that possessed girl began to resurface, haunting her in ways she couldn't explain. It was a cold December night when everything changed. The city was quiet, the streets empty as people sought refuge from the chill. Shanti was alone in her apartment, enjoying a late-night sandwich while watching a movie. The lights were on, casting a warm glow over the room, but the cold seemed to seep into her bones. As she sat on her bed, facing the television, she noticed something out of the corner of her eye. The door, which she had closed, seemed to be slightly ajar. A shiver ran down her spine, and she turned her head slowly to look. Standing in the doorway was the girl from the temple. But she wasn't the same. Her once beautiful features were twisted into a grotesque mask of horror. Her long hair, now neatly plaited, hung over one shoulder, and her eyes were nothing but black pits of emptiness. Her lips, cracked and bloody, curled into a cruel smirk. Shanti froze, her heart pounding in her chest. The girl didn't move, didn't speak. She just stood there, watching Shanti with those lifeless eyes. The room grew colder, and the shadows seemed to stretch out towards her. Shanti's mind raced. How could this be happening? The girl was a memory, a ghost from her past that had no place in her life now. But there she was, standing in her doorway, as real as the fear that gripped her heart. The next few days passed in a blur. Shanti barely slept, her mind consumed by the image of the girl at her door. She kept telling herself it was a hallucination, a trick of the mind brought on by stress. But deep down, she knew it was something more. Then Amal came to visit. He had been out of town and hadn't heard from Shanti in days. Worried, he came to check on her, knocking persistently at her door. When she didn't answer, he tried again, louder this time. Finally, she got up and peered out the window, hoping he would leave. But as she pulled the curtain aside, she saw Amal standing below, looking up at her with a strange intensity. His eyes, usually unfocused due to his poor vision, seemed to pierce right through her. He waved, a slow, deliberate motion that sent a chill down her spine. There was something wrong, something terribly wrong with the way he was looking at her. Reluctantly, she let him in. He entered the apartment, his movements sluggish, his face pale and drawn. They sat in silence for what felt like hours. Amal didn't say much, but his presence filled the room with an oppressive energy that made Shanti feel trapped. When he finally left, she breathed a sigh of relief, but the feeling of unease lingered. In the days that followed, Amal began to change. Neighbors saw him wandering the streets at odd hours, his clothes disheveled, muttering to himself. He avoided eye contact, his gaze fixed on something far off in the distance, something only he could see. Shanti watched from her window as he passed by, his once familiar face now a mask of confusion and fear. The neighborhood kids whispered rumors about him, saying he was losing his mind. Then, 3 days after his visit to Shanti, Amal was found dead. He had taken his own life, leaving behind no note, no explanation for the madness that had consumed him. Shanti was devastated. Guilt gnawed at her, though she couldn't explain why. She felt responsible, as if somehow, she had brought this upon him. But how? What connection could there possibly be between her and the horrors that had befallen Amal? Haunted by Amal's death and the terrifying encounter with the girl at the door, Shanti decided she could no longer stay in Chennai. The city that had once been her sanctuary now felt like a prison, its walls closing in on her with each passing day. She packed up her belongings, taking only what she needed, and left the city without a word to anyone. But as she boarded the train, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She glanced back, half expecting to see the girl standing on the platform, but there was no one there. The journey to her new home was long and lonely. Shanti tried to leave the past behind, but the memories clung to her like shadows. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this chilling tale and want more spine-tingling stories, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to your channel name. Turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. New horrors are just around the corner. Share your thoughts or your own eerie experiences in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the scariest things are closer than you think. See you in the next video. On a stormy night, when the winds howled and the darkness outside seemed to mirror the turmoil within, Maria found herself trapped in a nightmare. It began with an eerie tapping on her window, a sound that would soon unravel into a terrifying encounter with an unseen force. It all started on a particularly dark and stormy night. The wind howled through the trees, rattling the windows of my friend Maria's house. The night was unusually quiet, save for the unsettling rhythm of rapid, deliberate taps against the glass. 3 distinct knocks, as if someone, or something, was counting each strike. The tapping continued with an eerie persistence, growing louder and more insistent with each passing moment. Maria was alone in her room, wrapped in a cocoon of blankets. The storm outside seemed to echo the chaos in her mind. She fumbled for her phone, desperately seeking the comfort of its glow. Peering out into the void of darkness beyond her window, she saw nothing but the black abyss of night. She shuddered and retreated to her bed, pulling the covers tightly around her, hoping to drown out the sound. Yet, the tapping persisted, growing louder and more rhythmic, tap tap tap. Her heart raced in her chest, each beat a frantic drum against the silence of her room. As the tapping continued, Maria buried her head deeper under her covers, hoping it would all be a bad dream. The noise seemed to grow closer, the individual taps morphing into a relentless rhythm that rattled her nerves. For a brief moment, the room fell silent, her breathing the only sound breaking the stillness. Just as Maria was beginning to drift into a fitful sleep, the tapping returned with renewed vigor. Tap, tap, tap. It was as though someone was using a hammer against her window, each strike reverberating through her bones. Her heart pounded so loudly it felt like it might burst from her chest. She gritted her teeth and plugged in her headphones, cranking up the volume to drown out the noise, but it was no use. Exhaustion finally claimed her, and she succumbed to a restless slumber. The night's tranquility was shattered by a violent bang 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 that jolted her awake. The sound seemed to shake the very foundations of the house, the window panes vibrating with the force. Maria's alarm clock glowed 3:26 a.m. in the darkness, its digital numbers mocking her with their bright, unforgiving light. Sweat drenched her forehead as the pounding continued, each strike a reminder of the terror she was enduring. Wrapped in her blanket for what little comfort it could provide, she stumbled into the living room and huddled on the couch, clutching her blanket tightly. The howling started suddenly, cutting through the night with a mournful, bone-chilling sound. It seemed to echo through the house, a ghostly wail that seemed to reverberate in her very soul. Maria peered through the living room window, her eyes straining to see through the darkness. There, in the backyard, stood an enormous wolf, its fur black as the void itself. The creature's eyes glowed a menacing, otherworldly gold, piercing through the night and into Maria's very essence. It stood motionless, a dark silhouette against the moonlit sky, its gaze fixed intently on her. The sight was so terrifying that Maria dared not blink, fearing the wolf might pounce through the window at any moment. The wolf's eyes were hypnotic, drawing her in with a sinister allure. It felt as though the creature was not merely looking at her but probing the depths of her mind, seeking to unearth her darkest fears. The moon was suddenly obscured by a thick layer of clouds, casting the backyard into an impenetrable darkness. In that instant, the black wolf vanished without a trace. When the moonlight returned, the wolf was gone. The backyard was empty, save for the occasional rustle of leaves stirred by the wind. Maria must have eventually fallen asleep, though the exact moment of her departure from wakefulness was lost in the haze of her fear. The next morning, she sought solace in the presence of her mother, asking if she had heard the howling during the night. "No, sweetie, I didn't hear anything," her mother replied with a reassuring smile. "I slept like a baby." The day passed in a blur of normalcy, the routines of school and daily life masking the horrors of the previous night. However, that night, as Maria lay in bed, the haunting howling resumed. It was as if the creature was lurking just beyond the edge of the darkness, its presence an inescapable shadow. The howling persisted for hours, gnawing at her sanity until sleep finally overtook her. The following day, Maria's unease only deepened. During lunch at school, she tried to recount the horrifying events to her friends, hoping to find some understanding or solace. As she reached for her sandwich, an unexpected and revolting taste filled her mouth. The sandwich, once thought to contain a simple lunch meat, was filled with raw, rancid meat, crawling with fat and swarming with maggots. Overcome by disgust, she fled to the trash can, vomiting uncontrollably, the taste of decay lingering in her mouth. Desperate to rid herself of the vile sensation, Maria rushed to the school restroom, scrubbing her mouth furiously with soap and water. The assistant principal found her in this state, her concern evident as she asked, "Maria, are you okay, sweetie?" Unable to speak through her tears and sobs, Maria nodded toward the restroom sink, where remnants of the grotesque sandwich lay. The assistant principal's face paled as she examined the contents and took Maria to her office. In the office, Maria recounted the revolting incident, her voice trembling with fear. The assistant principal's reaction was one of grave concern. "Your friends showed me what was in your sandwich. Do you have any idea how it happened?" she inquired, her expression one of worry. Maria shook her head, her thoughts racing with the knowledge that the torment she was experiencing was not a figment of her imagination but a disturbing reality. "It wasn't my parents' fault," she insisted, her voice barely more than a whisper. The assistant principal, sympathetic yet troubled, suggested Maria speak with the school counselor. Reluctantly, Maria agreed, though she felt that it would lead to little resolution. The counseling session proved to be an exercise in futility. The counselor dismissed Maria's fears as mere fabrications, attributing the events to stress and imagination. Maria tried to explain, but her words fell on deaf ears. She knew that something malevolent was at work, but no one seemed to believe her. Days turned into a blur of anxiety and dread. The tapping and banging on her windows continued nightly, accompanied by the increasingly ominous howling that seemed to grow closer each night. Strange symbols began appearing on her window, drawn in what looked like blood, adding to her mounting terror. Drawings of the black wolf appeared in her journal, each more disturbing than the last. Maria's sleep deprivation and paranoia reached new heights as she locked herself in her room, avoiding school and the outside world. One morning, Maria found a FedEx package on her doorstep. The package bore her name and address but lacked a return address. Trembling, she brought it inside and opened it. Inside was a folded note atop a black trash bag. The note, written in a scrawling, almost frantic script, read, "To Maria B. and Joy, Little Pig." Signed, The Black Wolf. Maria's hands shook uncontrollably as she opened the trash bag. Inside was the decaying head of a pig, its eyes hollow and sunken, its tongue a grotesque, dried slab. The stench was overpowering, and Maria's revulsion reached its peak. She hurled the box out of the window and collapsed in a corner of her room, sobbing uncontrollably. As night fell, Maria remembered that her parents were away, leaving her alone in the house. Desperately, she tried to distract herself with her phone, but the darkness seemed to close in around her. At midnight, a knock echoed through the house, 3 deliberate taps. Maria approached the door, puzzled and fearful. The knocking grew more aggressive. Bang, bang, bang. Her heart raced as a voice from outside taunted, "Little pig, little pig. Let me in." Fear paralyzed her as the door burst open with a resounding crash. A shadowy figure surged into the house, slamming the door behind it. Maria was seized by her hair, dragged down the hallway to the basement. She struggled frantically as she was bound to a chair, a gag shoved into her mouth and secured with duct tape. The basement light flickered on, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Her captor stepped into view, not a monster but a man, though he wore a grotesque black leather mask shaped like a snarling wolf's face. His eyes, like the wolf's, were pitch black with glowing golden irises. Clad in black combat boots, a hoodie with a tan skull emblem, and black jeans, he exuded an aura of menace. As he unzipped his hoodie, his scarred and sinewy torso was revealed, a testament to the pain he had endured. "Little pig, are you scared of me, the big bad wolf?" His voice was a low, menacing rumble, dripping with mockery. Maria whimpered, tears streaming down her face. "You don't remember me, do you?" he sneered. "I was the victim of your cruelty back in high school. Your actions ruined my life, so now, it's your turn to suffer." And so, the tale of Maria and the Black Wolf comes to a harrowing end, a stark reminder that the shadows of our past can return when we least expect them, taking form in the most terrifying ways. As Maria discovered, some nightmares are more than just dreams. They are the echoes of our darkest actions, waiting to emerge from the abyss. Whether the Black Wolf was real or a manifestation of something much deeper, one thing is certain. Once the darkness sets its sights on you, there's no turning back. Thanks for watching, and if this story sent chills down your spine, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Mobile Buzz for more thrilling tales and tech insights. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest content. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep exploring the unknown. Welcome back to our channel, your go-to channel for thrilling mysteries and captivating stories that keep you on the edge of your seat. Today, we dive deep into a chilling tale of secrets, betrayal, and a past that refuses to stay buried. In a quiet, unsuspecting town, an unsolved murder shakes the community to its core, unraveling a web of lies that leads to a shocking truth. Get ready for a story that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. The Whispering Woods. In the small, secluded town of Pinebrook, surrounded by dense forests and misty hills, life seemed almost too quiet. The town's charm lay in its old-world feel, with cobblestone streets, vintage shops, and a close-knit community. But beneath the surface, Pinebrook held secrets, whispers carried by the wind through the ancient woods that surrounded it. Detective Mia Carter had just moved to Pinebrook from the bustling city, seeking a slower pace of life. Little did she know, her skills would soon be put to the test in ways she had never imagined. As she unpacked boxes in her quaint new home, the silence was shattered by the sound of her phone ringing. "Detective Carter? It's Sheriff Daniels. We have a situation at the old Thornton house. You'd better get here quick." Mia's heart skipped a beat. The Thornton house was a crumbling mansion on the edge of town, long abandoned and steeped in eerie local legends. Throwing on her jacket, she headed out into the cold, her mind racing with possibilities. As Mia approached the Thornton house, she felt a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn air. The house loomed like a forgotten relic, its once grand facade now cracked and covered in ivy. She could almost hear the whispers of those who had lived and died there. Sheriff Daniels met her at the gate, his face grim. "It's bad, Mia. Real bad." Mia followed him inside, the floorboards creaking underfoot as they made their way to the grand hall. There, in the middle of the room, lay a body. A woman, her face twisted in terror, her body unnaturally contorted. Blood pooled around her, soaking into the faded carpet. But what caught Mia's attention was the symbol drawn on the wall in the victim's blood, a crescent moon surrounded by intricate patterns. It looked ancient, almost ritualistic. Mia knew this was no ordinary murder. Someone had a message, and they were using this gruesome act to send it. The silent witness. Back at the Pinebrook police station, Mia pored over the case file. The victim was identified as Evelyn Harper, a local historian known for her research into the town's mysterious past. Evelyn had been investigating the old Thornton house for weeks, digging into its dark history, but it seemed her curiosity had cost her life. Mia interviewed Evelyn's colleagues, but they knew little about her recent findings. However, one name kept coming up: Oliver Thornton, the last heir of the Thornton family, who had disappeared years ago under suspicious circumstances. Some said he was dead, others believed he had gone mad and vanished into the woods. Mia felt a connection between Oliver's disappearance and Evelyn's murder. Could Evelyn have uncovered something that was meant to stay buried? Her next step was to visit the local library, where Evelyn had spent most of her time. The librarian, Mrs. Wren, a frail woman with sharp eyes, seemed hesitant to talk, but eventually, she led Mia to a secluded section of the library. There, among dusty tomes, Mia found Evelyn's notes, pages filled with cryptic symbols, references to ancient rituals, and legends of a secret society that once thrived in Pinebrook. One note caught Mia's eye: "The truth lies in the whispering woods." What was Evelyn planning to uncover in those woods? And who was willing to kill to keep it hidden? The darkness within. As Mia delved deeper, she uncovered disturbing stories about the Whispering Woods. Locals avoided the area, believing it to be cursed. They spoke of strange lights, ghostly figures, and a sense of being watched. Mia was skeptical, but the more she learned, the more she felt that the woods held the key to solving the case. One evening, Mia decided to visit the woods herself. Armed with a flashlight and a growing sense of unease, she ventured into the dense forest. The trees seemed to close in around her, the air thick with tension. Every rustle of leaves made her heart race. Deep in the woods, Mia found an old, overgrown path that led to a clearing. In the center stood a stone altar, weathered by time, with the same crescent moon symbol carved into it. She realized she was standing in the middle of an ancient ritual site. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Oliver Thornton. He looked gaunt, almost spectral, but his eyes were sharp, filled with a mix of fear and anger. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice a raspy whisper. "They'll find you." Mia demanded answers, but Oliver was evasive. He spoke of a secret society that had once ruled Pinebrook, practicing dark rituals in these woods. They had killed to protect their secrets, and Evelyn had come too close to uncovering the truth. But before Oliver could say more, He fled into the darkness, leaving Mia with more questions than answers. The hidden circle. Mia knew she was getting close to something dangerous. She began digging into the town's history, focusing on the elites who had lived in Pinebrook during its early days. Her research led her to an old mansion on the outskirts of town, owned by the Radcliffe family, one of the oldest and most powerful families in Pinebrook. At first, the Radcliffes were reluctant to speak, but when Mia mentioned the crescent moon symbol, their demeanor changed. They warned her to leave the past alone, to stop prying into things she couldn't understand. But Mia was determined. She pressed on, uncovering evidence that linked the Radcliffes and other prominent families to the secret society Oliver had spoken of. The society had been obsessed with immortality, conducting gruesome rituals in the Whispering Woods, sacrificing those who crossed them. They believed the woods held a gateway to another realm, and the crescent moon was the key to unlocking its power. Evelyn had found the proof she needed to expose them, but they had silenced her before she could reveal it. Now, Mia was in their sights. The final revelation. Determined to bring the truth to light, Mia returned to the Whispering Woods. This time, she wasn't alone. She had brought reinforcements. As they searched the clearing, they uncovered a hidden entrance beneath the stone altar. It led to an underground chamber filled with ancient relics and documents detailing the society's rituals. Among the relics was a journal, Oliver Thornton's. In it, he confessed to being part of the society, but he had turned against them when he realized the true cost of their pursuit of power. He had faked his death and gone into hiding, hoping to stop them. Evelyn's research had drawn her too close to the truth, and the society had made her their next target. But the journal also revealed something more sinister. The society wasn't just a relic of the past. It had survived, hidden in the shadows, with members in powerful positions throughout Pinebrook. They had been watching Mia's every move, and now they were closing in. Just as Mia and her team prepared to leave the chamber, they were ambushed. A group of masked figures emerged from the darkness, their leader stepping forward, a man Mia recognized from the Radcliffe family. "You should have listened, detective," he sneered. "Some secrets are meant to stay buried." But Mia was ready. A fierce battle ensued, and with the help of her team, she managed to overpower the attackers. The truth was finally out. The secret society had been exposed, and justice would be served for Evelyn and all those who had suffered. As the dust settled, Mia stood in the clearing, the Whispering Woods silent once more. The town of Pinebrook would never be the same, but the shadows that had haunted it for so long had finally been lifted. Mia knew there were still mysteries left to uncover, but for now, she had brought peace to a place that had known only darkness. Thanks for joining us on this suspenseful journey. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more gripping tales that will keep you guessing until the very end. Let us know in the comments what you think about the twists and turns in today's mystery, and stay tuned for our next thrilling episode. Until then, keep your eyes peeled, because in the world of mysteries, nothing is ever as it seems. As the train clattered along the tracks under the dim glow of the moon, Naveed thought he was in for a routine journey. But the night had other plans. An unsettling encounter with a stranger, a mysterious phone call, and a series of eerie events quickly turned this ordinary trip into a terrifying experience. As the shadows grew longer and the atmosphere thickened with tension. As the train rumbles through the dark, deserted countryside, Naveed settles into his seat, ready for a long journey. Little does he know, this trip will take him far beyond the familiar tracks of steel and wood. An eerie encounter with a mysterious woman, a chilling phone call, and a cryptic message will pull him into a terrifying journey he never expected. What begins as a routine train ride quickly spirals into a nightmare that will test his courage and unravel his sense of reality. Welcome to a tale where the ordinary turns into the extraordinary, and fear lurks in every shadow. I pulled out my train ticket and approached the person occupying my assigned seat. Politely, I said, "Excuse me, but this seat belongs to me. Could you please move?" Without looking up from her magazine, the woman replied in a dismissive tone, "Sit anywhere you like. The whole compartment is empty." Feeling a bit annoyed but maintaining my composure, I insisted. Please, this seat is reserved for me. I'd appreciate it if you could move. Reluctantly, she gathered her belongings, muttering something under her breath, and moved to the opposite berth. As she settled down, I noticed something strange. Her lips were moving as if she were whispering to herself. Then I realized something even stranger. She hadn't turned a single page of the magazine she was supposedly reading. My curiosity piqued. Why hadn't she turned even one page? As I settled into my seat, I glanced back at her. She seemed deeply engrossed in a conversation, speaking softly into a small earpiece hidden by her long hair. Deciding to ignore the odd behavior, I picked up a newspaper to read, but sleep eluded me. My eyes wandered around the compartment until they landed on a small piece of paper taped directly in front of me. Written in beautiful handwriting, the note read, "Will you be my friend?" Below the message was a phone number, neatly written in clear digits. Without much thought, I pulled out my phone and dialed the number, not expecting anyone to pick up immediately. To my surprise, the call connected on the first ring. A soft, melodic voice greeted me. "Hello, Naveed. You took your time, but I knew you'd call." My heart skipped a beat. "Who are you? How do you know me? And how did you know I'd call?" I blurted out, bombarding her with questions. The voice on the other end remained calm, almost amused. "Your journey has just begun, Naveed. There's still a long way to go before you reach your destination. You'll have all your questions answered, but for now, just enjoy the ride. Tell me about yourself. Where is your home?" Puzzled by her cryptic responses, I managed to say, "You'll find out soon enough." "But why don't you tell me more about yourself?" She chuckled softly. "We'll have plenty of time to talk. For now, why don't you just relax? I'll call you again when the time is right." With that, the line went dead. I saved the number in my phone, feeling a strange mix of excitement and unease. 30 minutes later, as passengers began opening their food containers, the air filled with the aroma of various dishes. I had eaten too much earlier and asked my manager, who was traveling with me, for an antacid. Just then, my phone buzzed again. It was a message that read, "Why do you eat so much that you need antacids?" I froze, glancing around the compartment in shock. My eyes landed on the woman from earlier. She was facing away from me, still engrossed in her magazine. My mind raced, trying to piece together what was happening. She must have seen me take the antacid and texted me as a joke, I thought. But then, another message popped up. "Why are you so eager to see my face?" "Patience, Naveed. You'll see me soon enough." A cold shiver ran down my spine. Who was this? I wanted to confront her, to demand answers, but something held me back. Instead, I sat there, watching her every move while the train sped toward its destination. The compartment was eerily silent, save for the rhythmic clattering of the train on the tracks. As the train reached the next station, my manager and I got off to grab some tea. I noticed a tall, slender young man approach the compartment window and speak briefly to the woman before walking away. The woman then stood at the door of the compartment, holding a cup of tea in her hand. The young man, who appeared to be a bodybuilder, returned with a packet of biscuits and began chatting with her. The train whistle blew, signaling our departure. The young man headed toward another compartment, and we boarded the train again. As I was about to get back on, the woman softly said, "Could you please give me your phone number?" Without thinking twice, I handed her my business card, and she quickly tucked it into her fist before returning to her berth. The train had just picked up speed when my phone rang again. I looked at the screen and saw her number. Her voice was as sweet as ever. "So, did you enjoy your tea?" I chuckled nervously and replied, "Tea is nothing. I'd give my life for you." There was a brief silence before she said, "Are you sure you can give your life for me?" As I lay back on my berth, trying to process everything, I heard a rustling sound. Something was moving on the berth across from mine. I glanced over and saw a colorful light flashing under the pillow. She had slipped on her Bluetooth headset and was back to her usual routine. I looked around the compartment, but it was mostly dark, with only a few passengers asleep. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized that the woman on the other end of the phone couldn't possibly be the one lying in front of me. Then her voice came through the phone again, this time more ominous. "Why are you so pale, Naveed? Did you see a ghost?" My mouth went dry. I gathered the courage to ask, "Who are you? Where are you? Why don't you look outside the window and find out?" she suggested. I hesitated but eventually got up and walked over to the window. I leaned forward, peering out into the darkness. We were passing a small, deserted station. The platform was dimly lit, and the signboard read, "Norper." The train wasn't supposed to stop here, but it had slowed down. In the yellowish light, I saw her, a tall figure in a white sari, standing on the platform. She held a phone to her ear with one hand and waved at me with the other. Her smile was hauntingly sad. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. "Did you see me?" her voice echoed in my ears. I was paralyzed with fear, unable to move or speak. The train began to pick up speed again, and the figure on the platform slowly faded from view. My heart raced as her laughter filled the compartment, and I dropped my phone in terror. The woman across from me had put down her magazine and was now staring at me intently. I quickly picked up my phone, climbed onto my berth, and pulled the blanket over myself, trembling uncontrollably. I tried to recite prayers, hoping to calm myself, but my fear was overwhelming. Just when I thought I had gained some composure, my phone rang again. The screen displayed an unknown number. My throat tightened as I answered. "Hello?" A man's voice, cold and threatening, came through the speaker. "I'm warning you, Naveed. My fiancée is traveling with you. She's complained about your behavior. If I hear another word, I'll deal with you in the worst way possible." The line went dead, leaving me shaking. I realized that the woman with the magazine was with that bodybuilder, and he had used my number to contact me. But if that was the case, who was the woman on the platform? Who had been calling me all this time? I glanced at the woman again, who was now talking quietly to someone on her phone. My phone buzzed once more, and I immediately turned it off, my hands trembling with fear. I had never been so terrified in my life. But then, something even more chilling happened. Even though my phone was off, the screen lit up, and a message appeared. "You've made a friend now, Naveed. Don't try to run away, or you'll regret it." I was beyond terrified. My body was trembling uncontrollably when I felt a tap on my toe. My heart skipped a beat as I looked up to see the bodybuilder standing there, motioning for me to follow him. He led me through several compartments until we reached the dining car. It was almost empty, with just a few people scattered around. My face was pale, my hands shaking as I tried to understand what was happening. The bodybuilder looked at me, and I could feel my blood running cold. As the train hurtles into the night, leaving behind the ghostly figure on the platform, Naveed is left with more questions than answers. The chilling encounters and strange phone calls have shaken him to his core, leaving him trapped in a web of fear and uncertainty. But one thing is clear: this journey has only just begun, and the darkness that haunts him is far from over. As the train races toward its destination, Naveed is left to wonder what awaits him in the shadows, and if he will ever escape the clutches of the unseen forces that have taken hold of his life. Thank you for joining us on this spine-chilling journey into the unknown. We hope you enjoyed this story and that it left you with a shiver down your spine. If you crave more tales that blur the line between reality and the supernatural, be sure to subscribe to Horror Echo. Don't forget to like, share, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story that will keep you up at night. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the echoes in the dark are more than just your imagination.